So, hello and welcome to my session. Welcome to the Cloud8 Virtual Summit. Really a pleasure to have you here on board. Hopefully you enjoyed the event so far. Thanks for joining here my session. My name is Thorsten Pickan. And yeah, the next 60 minutes, more or less, I will talk about Zero Trust for Microsoft Teams, how to secure collaboration with external partners. It's really a pleasure to be here again. It's the 8th edition of Cloud8 Virtual Summit, and it's already the third time or fourth time, I'm not sure, I'm here. So thanks, Drago, for the organization of this amazing event. Thanks to the sponsors, of course, for this event. And yeah, let's start directly into the session, I would say. And before I start with the content, the interesting content, I would say. Short introduction to myself. My name is Thorsten Pickan. I'm working as a cloud architect at Glocania from Germany. It's a Microsoft 365 partner. And I'm an MVP for Microsoft 365 since 5 years now. And that's because of my Microsoft Tech community. So I'm very active here, hosting the chapter in Bochum of the Teams user group Germany, for example. If you are in the rural area here in the wonderful Germany, give it a visit if you are interested in Microsoft Teams, of course. I have an own blog, Office 365 related, office365.topic.de. You find the links here. From time to time, I'm posting also new content on Practical 365. I have a YouTube channel and so on and so on. You find here the further links. Of course, you can also follow me on social media. Here I will also post if there is new content in the community. So just follow me there and we stay in contact. Best address is, of course, LinkedIn. And with this, I would like to start with the agenda. So for today, it is planned that we talk about the Zero Trust principles in general, that I will show you the risks we have in Microsoft Teams. Then we will switch into the admin's perspective. So how can we protect our users against attackers, against risks? And then we will switch over to the user perspective. What are the labels and informations in Teams? What are these labels and informations in Teams? So we will see how the end user can be informed about suspicious things going on in Microsoft Teams. And last but not least, I have a short best practice summary for you to end and close the session. And so let's start with Zero Trust principles. So we have a basic general understanding about Zero Trust. And here mainly there are 3 topics we need to cover and talk when we talk about Zero Trust principles. And the first one is trust nobody in first instance, check always and authorize every access. So if you have services, and I guess you have services, that's why you are here in the session, like Microsoft Teams, like Microsoft 365, but also on-premises on your infrastructure. Of course, we have some trust because the user is in our network or is working from our network, for example. But yeah, the thing here is Zero Trust, trust nobody, even the user is using our corporate network. Check and authorize this access and check if the user is valid to access our services like Microsoft 365. Next one is use least privileged access. Of course, this means for the administrator, just grant the required permission to the role of the administrator. For example, grant Exchange admin role to an Exchange administrator and do not grant the global administrator role, or grant the Teams administrator role to a Teams administrator, grant the Teams user help desk role if the users are only working in the user help desk, but also for a normal user, just grant the required file permissions, access to the required teams the user needs in his role in your company. And the third one is always assume reach. What does it mean? Don't think that everything is secure, everything is good. There are no attackers and all the stuff. Always assume that there could be potentially an attacker and a breach. So monitor your environment, monitor your servers, monitor your MC65 logs, and take a look into it to get details and analyze them. If there are suspicious activities in your MC65 environment, in your environment in general, to react and proactively protect your users, your environment against malware attackers and all the bad things which are out there. So these are the three principles when we talk about zero trust. Now coming to what are the risks in Microsoft Teams, because this session has a focus on Microsoft Teams, of course. So first one, I guess in some it's very obviously, but I think it's always a good point to bring us on the same level. So what are potential attacks in Microsoft Teams? We are seeing more and more. First of all, phishing in Teams chats and compromised accounts. Phishing in Teams, in the past, we always talked about phishing emails. So email had a big role in this potential attack scenario when we talk about phishing. And here we are seeing that it comes more and more from mail to Teams, because attackers using Teams chats, it's quite easy to attack someone if there is an open federation. So phishing in Teams is a problem. And of course, also compromised accounts. That means that someone has access with my account data because he stole my account data and used my account data to log into Microsoft Teams. So then I have a compromised account. Guest access and external partners. This is also a potential risk and potential attack. Why? Because when I'm grant or invite a guest user to my tenant, to my Teams, if I invite an external partner over a B2B connection in a tenant, for example, with a shared channel to access my data, there's always a risk that data with some insights of my company, some secure sensitive data is included in the shared channel, and external person has unfortunately access to this data. And yeah, this is there's a potential of data loss, for example. Then the good one, the old classic one, we know since years, malware in files. So if someone's sending us a Word file via Teams chat, it could be that the file is infected, has malware included, and when I open the document, something happens with my PC, something unwanted happens with my PC and my Word. Social engineering, it's the same, more or less like phishing in Teams. So someone external starts a conversation with me in Microsoft Teams. We have a lazy chat talking about business, all the stuff, whatever. And then over time, we have some level of trust. And then the attacker starts to ask personal questions. And because we have this level of trust, I start to answer this because I don't have something in mind that it could be dangerous. And yeah, then I share some personal stuff like my birthday or something like this. And this helps an attacker from the outside to, for example, do a password reset for me and then compromise my account again. So here you can see that it's some point of cycle here we have. And last but not least, token theft. What does it mean when I try to access Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Teams especially? I need to log in with my MC65 credentials. This results in a token which is stored on my machine. And there are tools outside there which can be used by an attacker to grab this token from my PC. So the token is copied to an attacker machine, and then the attacker does not require any username or password from my identity, from my MC65 identity. The token, the stolen token, is enough to access Microsoft Teams or Microsoft 365 services, and then yeah, that's possible. That's also an attack scenario. So, and now the question is, how can we protect all users or tenant or company and give them a better level of security to do not see such attacks and scenarios I presented a few seconds ago. And therefore, we will switch into the admin perspective. So let's first of all see how an administrator can technically prevent and make your environment more secure. And the first one, it's an overview in which different admin centers we need to take a look in, because Microsoft, of course, when we talk about Microsoft Teams, provides different admin centers. And the first and obviously one is, of course, the Microsoft Teams Admin Center. Here we have different sections where we need to inspect and analyze everything, if every setting meets our security requirements or company requirements. For example, you can go into the Teams Admin Center, open the user section, and there you find guest access and can configure the permissions of a guest when you have invited someone from an external tenant to join a Teams with you. Here you can configure which permissions or which functionality a guest user has when he uses or opens your Microsoft Teams. For example, is it allowed that a guest user can chat, can delete chat messages, can do one-on-one calls with other users in the Teams tenant, and and don't forget, it's always the guest account we are talking here. So it's a guest allowed to call, for example, this is the CEO, because one-on-one calls are allowed. Then the next section is federation settings. You find it under the user's scope, external access. I have some slides prepared. We will go deeper into the details here, but at least, the basic idea is that we can, of course, use Microsoft Teams to federate with other companies, to easily communicate, collaborate with them, so I can have a chat with them, or can also do a Teams call one-on-one with other users from other tenants, and this happens thanks to the federation settings. And here I have different settings I can set to make my federation more secure, my Teams environment more secure. When you go into the meeting policies, you find them in the meetings section. Here we have also different options, parameters we can configure and define how a user who joined our meeting from external, this could be a guest user, this could be an anonymous user, but this can also be an authenticated Teams user when the company we invited to our meeting is using Microsoft Teams, for example. Here we can control which permissions these users have in our meetings. For example, is an external user allowed to directly join a meeting, or should the external partner wait in the lobby? This is also some kind of security. When I share my screen, is it allowed that I give the control to an external partner, so he can control my PC, move the mouse and all the stuff? So this is defined in the meeting policies. Then we have the meeting settings. Also here I can configure if, for example, anonymous users are allowed or not. So different settings, take a look into this section from the Teams Admin Center, where you can define which permissions are granted to external partners, external users when we use Microsoft Teams with them together. Next big thing we should talk about is Enter ID. Here you also have different settings you can configure, like the cross-tenant access settings. This is required if we would like to configure a shared channel, a B2B. Here I can configure which, of course, first of all, which remote tenants are allowed and to do a B2B and do a cross-tenant access. I can define if I trust the compliance state of a PC, for example, from a remote tenant or not, or if the remote user needs to if we will check the compliance state of the PC. Then we have next the external collaboration settings we can configure here in the Enter ID. This means we can, for example, define who from our users is allowed to invite a guest to Microsoft Teams. I can define a group of users who can invite someone else. I can define that only the Teams administrator or the global administrator is allowed to invite some external users as a guest. So there are different settings. I can also define which domains I would like to invite. So I can limit this and say not every domain is allowed to join us as a guest. I will only allow specific domains. This is also possible, and you find it here in the external collaboration settings. And we have, of course, conditional access, where we can configure on one hand how our internal IT should interact with M365 services. For example, I only allow access to my M365 services when a user, an employee of us, is using a corporated owned hardware. It is Entra ID joined, it has specific Windows updates installed, it has a current antivirus scan done, so it's compliant. This I can control with conditional access, but I can also define if a user is not using a corporated device because it's a guest or it's one of my employees, but he or she is using a PC at home, which level of access I will grant to such a user from home. So, for example, that the user is not allowed to download a file from Teams and just using the Microsoft Word web app, for example, to edit a Word file. So everything stays in the browser and there is no option to download a file. This can be controlled also in conditional access, how my users, in which level my users can access the data and how they can work with the data. Then we have the SharePoint Online Admin Center, also important and sometimes missing when we talk about Microsoft Teams, because all our files, of course, are stored in SharePoint Online, and therefore SharePoint Online has also a big role when we talk about external sharing. And here, especially the sharing options in SharePoint Online and OneDrive, where I can define if I can share my files, for example, from OneDrive, but also from SharePoint Online with anyone outside there, or just with guest users or existing guest users, or only with people from my organization. And last but not least, we have the Defender Portal XDR. Defender for Office 365 is one of these points I can use to protect my users against malware, for example, shared via Teams. Which is very new is that I have an integration, or can I enable an integration of tenant allow block lists when we talk about federation. Therefore, I can also use the Defender Portal, and I will show you or give you some insights in a few seconds. So, first of all, before we start with the Teams Admin Center settings you can use to control federation, Defender Portal, all the stuff, let's go into some basics, which Microsoft, of course, recommend, but not all of our customers, or not all customers of M365 customers have already configured. And the first and easiest one, for example, is to enable all users for multi-factor authentication. It's still missing. Most companies, of course, have configured multi-factor authentication for the admins. There's also now an enforcement by Microsoft that more and more admin portals require that the user needs to authenticate with multi-factor. But end users, interestingly, are not so well enrolled as Microsoft would like to have. And yeah, most of the attacks we're seeing currently, or since Microsoft 365 is in service, would be better protected when multi-factor is in place and it's not so easy to gain access to compromise an account, for example. Then a combination of conditional access and device compliance could also be very helpful. As explained, I can use conditional access to require a specific state of a machine who access or tries to access my Microsoft 365 services. For example, that it is required that the latest Windows updates are installed, that there is a current antivirus scan from the machine, that the latest antivirus pattern are installed, that there is a specific version of Windows installed. And based on this compliant state, I can grant full access to Microsoft Teams or only via web app, or yeah, even I can also block the access to my M365 services when, for example, a user is using a device which does not belong to the company, the home PC, for example, then I can also block totally the access to my M365 services. I should take a look into the Microsoft 365, or better to say the Teams Admin Center, to make the collaboration with external parties more secure. I will show you in a few seconds. And as mentioned, assume always a breach. So monitor security risk with Microsoft Defender. Use the M365 audit log. Check if the M365 audit log is already enabled in your tenant. If not, do this, because then you have a log. You can analyze if there is something or no. You can edit audit a log, or you can use the audit log to analyze if there are any suspicious activities in your tenant, if there are special usernames where someone is trying from external authenticate again and again and again. So take a look, always take a look in the audit logs, in the security logs from Defender and Microsoft 365 to have a better overview what happens in your tenant if there is currently an attack ongoing or something else. So don't be too safe that everything is fine. Always monitor your environment in the cloud, but also on-prem if there are any suspicious activities. So, as promised, let's go into the Teams Admin Center and check what are the federation settings and what we can here optimize, or how the different settings play a role, how we can secure Microsoft Teams when we would like to work with external partners. And as mentioned, when we there are two different states we can have in Microsoft Teams environments. The first and the default one is an open federation, so everyone is able to federate with us when you the first time set up and a Microsoft 365 tenant. This is the default setting. So everyone who is also using Microsoft Teams is allowed to start communication and federation with us. The other option is to have a closed federation, and there we can decide if we would like to go with the block list. So we block specific domains which are not allowed to communicate with us, and we can configure an allow list, and here we name the domains we would like to allow to do a federation with us. So open federation, closed federation. When we initially start for the first time an M365 tenant and subscription, the federation is open as said, and what is also possible is that users can federate with M365 trial tenant. What does it mean, M365 trial tenant? If you would like to try the services offered by Microsoft with Microsoft 365, you can easily subscribe to a trial tenant. So for a specific time, there's no need to pay anything. You get the full-blown services of an E5 license. You can use SharePoint, you can use Exchange Online, but you can also use Teams, for example. And then it's very easy to use this trial tenant to federate with someone else out there who is also using Microsoft Teams. And of course, it's very easy, or it's the best way for attackers to use such trial tenants because it doesn't cost any money. And if there are any Microsoft 365 tenants with an open federation, it's very easy to use this infrastructure to send other users a message, to do social engineering and all the stuff. And long time it was not possible, and now since a year, I guess it's there's an option that I can disable trial tenants for federation. So take a look in your admin center. By default, it is on. So it is allowed the trial tenants have a federation with me with a commercial license. Yeah, it's an option, and perhaps it's necessary to disable that one. If this is disabled, trial tenants are no longer allowed to do a federation with my tenant. And by the way, how does Microsoft determine if it's a trial tenant or not? It's quite easy. Microsoft checks if a tenant has a paid license. If not, Microsoft declares this tenant as a trial tenant. If there is a paid license, a single license is sufficient enough, then the trial tenant status goes away. So only if you have a tenant without any paid license, it is a trial tenant. But of course, when I disable M365 trial tenants from my federation, it could be that I have on the other side other problems. For example, if my IT is working with trial tenants to test different things, it could be helpful to have a federation between my productive tenant and a trial tenant to test something. And when I disable the M365 trial tenants, it's not longer possible for my IT to test things, or other departments too. So Microsoft listened to the feedback from our customers, from our MVPs, and they implemented the solution a few months ago that you can use the PowerShell to define specific trial tenant domains, and these are then allowed to do a federation with you. So in general, the M365 trial tenants are disabled to establish a federation, but you can name specific trial tenant domains, and these trial tenant domains are then allowed to do a federation with you. Very interesting. Unfortunately, that only works on the PowerShell, but I guess all of you are able to do this. So open the PowerShell, connect to Microsoft Teams Online, and here is the liner you can use the commandlet to add a trial domain as a allowed trial domain. If you would like to have some details, just use the QR code and you will be redirected to the specific official Microsoft Learn article to get details about this commandlet set CS tenant federation configuration. The next thing is that we can also disable unmanaged Teams accounts. What does it mean? First of all, here is the parameter or the toggle you can disable, and when you disable unmanaged Teams account, that means that Teams Essential accounts are not longer allowed to do a federation with you, but also your users are not allowed to do a federation with Teams Essentials. So Teams Essential is blocked, and users are not longer able to do a federation with these accounts. But same story here. From time to time, it could be very helpful to have this possibility to use Teams Essentials, because perhaps my customers are using Teams Essentials. And then it's a quite easy way to do a communication. And yeah, my sales team requires that Teams Essential in general is allowed. And for this scenario, also Microsoft provides an exclusion. For example, you can enable Teams Essential or unmanaged Teams accounts, but you can disable that Teams Essentials is allowed to start inbound communication. What does it mean? If I have a Teams Essential account and would like to communicate with you, and the Teams Essentials communication is allowed, that's easygoing. We can directly, I can search based on your email address, your account, and then I can start to chat with you, and hopefully you answer to me. What the Teams administrator can do on PowerShell is to disable Teams consumer inbound messages. That means that when I read your mail address on your website and I have Teams Essentials, I can, of course, start a chat message or try to start a chat message. But yeah, Teams Essential will not find your account even though you are using Microsoft Teams and Teams Essential is allowed in your tenant. The thing what it is required when the inbound communication is disabled is that the communication always starts and is initiated by your end users. So your end users as Teams user can start a communication to Teams Essential, And when there is a communication channel established, of course, we can communicate the whole time. But for me, as an unknown Teams Essentials user, from your perspective, I'm not allowed to start and initiate the communication to your end users. So this protects you and your end users against discovery and search from Teams Essentials for valid accounts in your environment. Also a good thing you can configure here on the PowerShell. Then I guess this is quite new. I'm not sure, but when I prepared here the slide deck, I saw this for the first time, that I now can block specific remote users for federation. So I have here an option which can be enabled, and then I can add a single user or multiple user addresses. So I need to enter here the zip addresses, the email addresses of the users, and when I enter these mail addresses, these users are in general blocked and they are not able to start a communication with us, and even also I'm not allowed to start a communication with them. When there was a communication in the past between these users and the blocked users, also this communication will be removed from your end user's Teams client. So be aware of this. If you add here a blocked user, the communication will be removed automatically from the Teams client. And yeah, this is very specific because then I block a specific remote users. When I take a big picture, it's not, of course, also possible to block and allow specific domains. Yeah, as already mentioned in the beginning of this slide deck, I can work in 2 modes or 3 modes. The first one is open federation. Second one is to block specific domains or to allow specific domains. When I block specific domains, all other domains are still allowed to start a communication with me. When this is most secure environment is to allow specific domains, then just everything else is blocked. So when you work with allow domains, only these domains are allowed to work with you. I need to enter here or add a domain. And in my example, it is test.contoso.com. I have added this as a block domain. So every user with test.contoso.com is not allowed to start a federation with me. Unfortunately, what is possible is if the administrator at test.contoso.com creates a new subdomain.test.contoso.com, and enables a user with this subdomain for Microsoft Teams. This Teams user with the subdomain is able to start a communication because I only blocked test.contoso.com and not subdomain.test.contoso.com. So this could be also some kind of security risk. And for this, you have again open the PowerShell, and there you can enable that also subdomains from blocked external domains should be blocked. Unfortunately, an allow all subdomains is missing. So this only works for blocked external domains. And here you can enable that automatically all subdomains will also be blocked when you have a blocked external domain. There are 2 options. You can configure external access and the federation. The first one is on org level. So in general, you enable the federation for your Microsoft 365 Teams tenant. You can, in general, define if it's a block mechanism or a allowed method. If it's an open federation, you can configure in general if Teams Essential is allowed. You can configure if trial tenants should be allowed and all the stuff. So this is on org level. And if you enabled in which method you would like to have on org level that the federation is valid and enabled for your end users, you can define on user level different settings than you have configured here on the org level. So for example, you can use such user level policies. Imagine you have a company with a user help desk, for example. You would like to have an open federation for all users except the user help desk people. You can then enable on org level an open federation, but you would like to prevent that your customers directly contact your support team via Teams. Your customers should use the ticketing system, the mail hotline, the telephone hotline, whatever. But you would like to block a direct access between your customers, external customers, and the customer support desk. And therefore, you create a user level based policy, a user external access policy, where you, for example, block or configure that only specific domains are allowed. For example, my user help desk should not communicate with my customers directly, but they should be allowed to communicate with a vendor of a software, for example, to get faster support. Then you could create a user level access policy, define that there are some specific domains like contoso.com as a vendor, and all other domains are blocked for federation. And then you assign this policy to the members of the user help desk, and then they are able to communicate with your vendors, but not with the customers, and all other people in the company are allowed to communicate in all directions. And this is possible thanks to the external access policies. So be aware of that there are different levels, org level and user level policies. Then Microsoft announced in August last year a pretty new feature, and here Microsoft announced that Microsoft Teams, or that the allow block list from Microsoft Teams, will be integrated into the Defender portal, so that a security administrator can configure and manage the block list. And this is very important to understand. Don't irritate about the Office tenant allow block list. This feature needs to be enabled by the Teams admin in the Teams admin center. So there's a toggle the Teams administrator can enable. When this toggle is enabled, it is the integration of the allow block list into the Defender portal is also enabled, and the security team can manage the block list. But it's only the block list, so it completely depends on what is your current federation state. Do you have an open federation? Do you have a closed federation with allow list, or do you have a closed federation with block list? And only if you use a closed federation with block domains, then the feature to integrate it into the Defender portal will work for you. So the security team is only able to block domains, to add new domains which should be blocked, and to remove existing blocked domains. This sync between Teams and the security center, the Defender, is immediately. So even though you enable this feature, the Teams administrator is still able to add new block domains and remove block domains. Also, the security team is able to do it from the Defender portal, and this sync is immediately. So when someone from the security add a new domain as block domain, the Teams administrator will see it in a couple of seconds as a new domain, and also the other way. Which is very important to understand and know. You need to have two modes, or when you have one of these two modes enabled, this thing will work. So first of all, you need to enable the feature. That's the first one. And your current external federation needs to be set to allow all external domains or to block only specific external domains. If you have allow only specific external domains, this feature will not work. So allow all external domains or block only specific external domains. When you have the setting configured allow all external domains, so you have an open federation, it is also very important to understand that in this case you have enabled the integration of the block allow list in Defender, and you have set the configuration to allow all external domains. A security admin can add a new domain as a block domain. And when the security admin is doing this, that the security admin adds a new block domain, in your Teams admin center, the setting will automatically be switched from allow all external domains to block only specific external domains, and this added domain will be added to the blocked domains. Unfortunately, there's currently no information to the Teams administrator team that someone changed from the security team the setting from allow all external domains to block only specific external domains. So please be aware of, if you work with this feature, that there is a good communication between the Teams team and the security team, so that you are aware of any changes. And what is also important to understand, that it only works on org level. So if you defined, as explained earlier, user-based external access policies, these policies are not covered here in the Defender portal. In the Defender portal, only the general allow block list is maintained, and the security admin has the option to block domains. Currently, there's no information available if in the future there will also be an option to manage allow specific external domains for the Defender portal, or in the Defender portal, currently only block option. What is already known and announced for mid of January this year, so perhaps you already have the feature, is that you can block or that you can, as a security administrator, can also manage the block specific external user setting. So then you have another tab where you can add specific user zip domains, and with this, these specific external users are blocked from using Teams Federation with your tenant. So this is a team specific thing. Now let's switch to Defender for Office, which is also interesting to see, that because there are some upcoming new feature. Let's start with a general overview. When you bought, or when you have the first M365 license and the subscription, there are some basic default security protection settings tools you can use. For example, with Exchange Online Protection, email protection is given for all cloud mailboxes. Then another component you already have with the first M365 subscription, and it doesn't matter which one it is. Of course, it needs to be a SharePoint or a Teams license. Then you have a common virus detection engine, which scans files when you upload a file to Microsoft Teams. And here's also important to understand that not every file which will be uploaded to Microsoft Teams or SharePoint will be scanned by this common virus detection engine. It's more heuristic, and perhaps there's a delay of time when the scan happens. If there is a file uploaded and it was not scanned by Microsoft, and some of your users tries to download this file, then this file is immediately scanned, so there's a good protection for your end users. If you would like to have more information, of course, you can use the QR code to be redirected to the official article. If you would like to have more advanced protection features, there are, of course, other options. You can use the Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 or Plan 2, and both are add-on licenses. You need to buy them, or depending on your license bundle, your license M365 license, are included. For example, the M365 Business Premium license includes the Office 365 Plan 1. The M365 E5 license includes the Plan 2 of Office 365 or Defender for Office 365. And depending on the different plans, you have different security features which you can use in your tenant. When we take a closer look to Microsoft Teams and which techniques are available when we use Microsoft Teams and Defender for Office, the first thing I would like to mention here is that in all subscriptions, when you have a Teams license, as mentioned, antivirus file scan while uploading is included, and which is currently in preview is a near real-time URL protection in Teams messages. So if someone is sending you a URL, the URL is scanned in the background, and if there's something wrong with this, yes, some suspicious URLs, we have this real-time URL protection. This is currently in preview. Then, if you have Defender for Office 365 P1, you get new features like safe attachments and safe links. And you will also have access to 0-hour auto protection for Teams. I will explain in a few seconds, and team messages in quarantine. Important to understand is the safe links is a time of click protection. That means in that time you click on a link you received via Teams chat message, for example, Microsoft opens a sandbox in the background, or you get a redirected URL. When you click on it, Microsoft will open a sandbox in the background, will check this URL if there are any malware for suspicious activities when you open the website. If not, you will be redirected to the official, or to the correct URL, to the redirected URL. If there is something suspicious, you will get a more warning in the blog page. The Defender for Office 365 P2 also includes, besides the first one, the report Teams messages option, the Teams message entity panel, the attack simulation training, which is currently in private preview, which sounds also very interesting. Here you can start and simulate an attack for your end users to train them how to handle such suspicious Teams messages, but unfortunately still in private preview. And hunting on Teams messages with URL is also included in the P2. Going more into detail with the ZAP, zero-hour auto purge in Microsoft Teams, what does it mean? As mentioned, it is included when you have the Office 365 Defender P1. And the good thing is it is turned on by default. So everyone who has Office 365 Defender for Office 365 P1 has the 0-hour auto purge feature. And with this mechanism scans automatically Teams messages for suspicious mails or messages. And if it detects something where we have a high confidence of phishing or malware, it moves these messages into quarantine. ZAP currently scans messages from chats, group chats, standard channels, and shared channels in Microsoft Teams. Private channels are currently not supported. And what is also very important to understand and to know is that it only works internally. So only internal chat messages and channel messages are scanned by ZAP. The thing here is, if I receive a URL, for example, or a message which includes phishing, I click on it, my local Defender is aware of this, detect it, and block the traffic, for example. It reports it to Defender. The Defender platform reports it to the ZAP mechanism in Microsoft Teams, and then everyone from my internal teams, these messages who also received it, will be removed and moved to the quarantine. And yeah, coming to report the Teams chat message, which is a feature from the P2. Here we have more or less the same functionality like you already know from Outlook, report mail as junk. So when I receive a message and I think it's not a good one, it's suspicious, I can click on the three dots, and here I have the option report this message, and then it is reported to Microsoft for further analysis, or the Teams administrator, the Defender administrator can also configure that the message is reported to the internal team only or to Microsoft and the internal team. Safe attachment, I guess this is already known, and very common. So if you receive an attachment, Microsoft will open this attachment in a sandbox, will see if there is something dangerous executable stuff included, and if so, the access is blocked to this attachment. Switching now to the user perspective, and I need to be a little bit faster, I guess, but yeah, some slides are still coming. Unverified, untrust, trust. Perhaps you already heard about this new form of indicator for our end users, and it makes it more easier for our end users to understand in which relationship we are with the external party. Is it a trusted relationship or, for example, an untrusted? When we have a federation, an open federation or a blocked federation, so we block specific domains and all others are allowed to do a federation with us. In most cases, you will see the icon in the middle here. That doesn't work for any reason. I'm not sure why. This one or this one. So external, this should already be known. But I would like to focus here on two of these indicators. The first one is the external. And here it is important, this check. So this means that this is a trusted external. And how do I get this trusted external indicator? For example, if I have a B2B with this user or this company with this tenant to work in a shared channel, all member of a shared channel will get this external trusted icon indicator. Also, if there is configured a cross-cloud trust, or important when you use Microsoft Teams phone system and you have an Outlook contact or a Teams contact, and someone, Teams contact is calling you, the phone number will display also the trusted external indicator. Then I ask myself, how does it work with federation, with a closed federation? For example, the highest level you can have is to allow just specific domains, because then the IT defines which companies we would like to do a federation. This is the most secure way, I would say. And also there, if you work in this in a way that you only allow specific domains, this federation partners will get the trusted external indicator, which was very interesting for me to see. The other indicator I would like to discuss and present here is the email verified. A few months already ago, Microsoft implemented a new option when you are a meeting organizer. And you can enable it and require that unverified participants to verify their info before joining a meeting. So if you have anonymous users joining your meeting, you can enforce them to do an email verification. So they will have to enter the email address when they join the meeting as an anonymous participant. They will receive an email with a one-time password. They need to enter it. And if the one-time password is correct, they can access the meeting and they will get the trust indicator of email verified. So if you have that one, now it makes sense to have this option to require unverified participants to verify by mail. So these are the different indicators. Of course, as mentioned, use the QR code to get more details. How does it look for the end user? Also important to know. When you have such an external trust like we've seen here, you have the icon directly here, the label directly here beside the name, and you can hover with the mouse over it, and then you get also the information that Thorsten Pickern is part of a trusted organization, and then the user or the end user knows, okay, here we are talking with a trusted organization. Of course, they still need to be careful, but it's always a good indicator to have that one. In the beginning, I talked a lot of phishing, social engineering. So someone out there is using a trial tenant and try to contact your users assume that you have an open federation and it is possible to use trial tenants or to use any M365 tenant outside to do a federation with you. It could happen that your users receive a chat message from someone unknown, the first initial message, I would say. And here Microsoft implemented now a protect wall, I name it, or protection wall. So that means that you get a very obviously a very present information that is the first time that an external person is trying to talk to you, to send you a chat message, and the system is asking you if you would like to block or accept the message. If you are unsure, you can also open a preview of the message. And if you select this one, you will see the message you received for the first time from this person. And then you can still decide to block or to accept this communication and start a chat with this person. The interesting part here is if the user blocks this communication. In that case, I'm receiving a chat message from Emily Johnson. And it's the first time that Emily contacted me via Microsoft Teams. It's the first ever chat message I received from her. And when you are in this state of black accept, there's no activity popping up. So the user needs to see this. And when I decide to block the communication from Emily, my Teams administrator or my M365 administrator will see this in the audit log if the M365 audit log is enabled. Then the administrator will see that there is a communication from external and that Thorsten Pickern blocked the communication in this specific case. This is visible to my M365 administrator. For the administrator from Emily Johnson, this is not visible. This is not visible that the communication has been blocked by Thorsten. So the administrator of Emily Johnson will see in the audit log that Emily sent a chat message to external. That's it. The external administrator will not see if the message arrives, if someone reacted, if it's blocked or not. The remote administrator will just see that Emily sent a message to someone outside of the organization, but the administrator of Emily will not see in the audit log that it has been blocked by me. So, and now, best practices summary. If you work with block and allow lists in federations, please establish a process so your users can name new domains for the block and allow list. I often come into projects where companies are working with a block list or an allow list, and then nobody knows in the company from the end users how they get new domains from new partners onto the block list or the allow list. So establish a process so your users can name new domains or submit new domains for the block or allow list. Then train your users about new features like the trust indicator, for example. Otherwise, they cannot benefit from such valuable implementations because, yeah, they can handle the indicator. What does it mean? I'm not sure. Did you hear something? So inform and train your users about new features. It's so easy, and you have paid for it. So inform them. They have a better feeling in external communication and how to deal with it. If not already done, please implement multi-factor authentication and conditional access also for your users. It will make your security more and better optimize it by using MFA and conditional access. Check what security features are included in your M365 license. So a lot of users and companies have the M365 license and are not aware of that there is perhaps already a Defender for Office 365 included, or that they can use conditional access or whatever. So please check if there are any security features, and if so, use them. Check them and use them. Here you can use the secure scoreboard under security.microsoft.com. You will find the secure scoreboard, and here you will find a list of all security features provided by Microsoft. You can filter this list based on your license. So which of the security optimizations are included with my license? Then it filters down to only the features you can use based on your licensing. And then most of the time it's really low-hanging fruits you can enable and optimize the security level for your whole organization. And last but not least, also often missing, regularly review your collaboration tenant settings in Teams Admin Center, Entra ID, and SharePoint Online. Of course, it sounds so easy, but most companies do not have this review. So, for example, if I start a partnership with an external partner, but it's terminated to 6 months, it always makes sense to remove the tenant domain, the remote tenant domain, after 6 months or the relationship has ended. So review your collaboration tenant settings in the different admin centers. Be aware of that we have to take a look into different Teams admin center or different admin centers in general. So Teams admin center, Entra ID, SharePoint Online, and don't forget Defender 2, of course. And then you have the most current state. And with this being said, thanks for joining. Here's a session. The hour is over. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the Cloud8 Virtual Summit if you like. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn or any other social media platform. And then thanks for joining and thanks for listening. See you on one of the next community events. Bye-bye.